This meeting is called to order. Welcome to the Wednesday, April 9th meeting of the regular meeting of the Board of Education. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Remain standing for a moment of silent meditation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Trombetta to present to us the We Are Sachem Superintendent's Report, some recognitions, and of course we'll have our budget, our last budget discussion. So I'm going to turn to Ms. Trombetta.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'd like to start the night by inviting Mrs. Salvia and Mr. Antonetti up to recognize a very special person for us. Mr. Caridi was nominated and won. He was the CAS Administrator of the Year, so they're going to speak on his behalf, and we're going to congratulate Mr. Caridi.
Good evening, Ms. Trombetta, Mr. Scavo, and Board of Education trustees. As the president of the Sachem Administrators Union, it is my honor to be here tonight to celebrate John Caridi as the Long Island Council of Administrators Administrator of the Year Award. This award isn't just about titles or accolades, it's about impact. As an assistant principal at Sachem East High School, John Caridi has made a positive impact on students and staff alike. Whether it's guiding students through challenges, supporting teachers with tireless energy, or simply showing up with a smile and a calm word during chaotic times, he leads with integrity, empathy, and a relentless belief of the potential of every student and staff member. In a role that often works behind the scenes, John Caridi has built a culture of trust, collaboration, and excellence in our school community. So today, we don't just honor the award, we honor the person. And we're so proud that he was recognized as this year's recipient of CAS's Administrator of the Year Award. Congratulations on this well-deserved recognition.
Just to give a piece of building perspective with John, it's funny because he doesn't want the spotlight. He just wants to work. He just wants to grind it out every day. So I feel bad because we're kind of on a media tour right now, where we had a nice dinner at Mezzaluna and Hot Pog. Now here at the board meeting, we thank you very much. But again, I know he does appreciate it deep down. And the biggest part about John, I say this all the time, he's like a surgeon in his approach. Anytime he's on a phone call or meeting with a parent, I feel like we should videotape it and kind of just take a video for any new administrators that are entering the business so they could see how things are handled. Because usually parents will leave and they'll come in irate and they leave wanting to hang out with them maybe. It's amazing. You got to see this dynamic. But he never allows his ego to get in the way, which allows him to come up with productive solutions for any issues that arise. The best quality about John, I think, is his perspective. He worked in finance out of college. He grew up with a dad who he saw mentor students as a phys ed teacher at Walt Whitman High School and coached football there for about 30 years as well. He also worked in New York City for the DOE for a few years in some of the toughest areas after being excessed from Smithtown as a PE teacher. So he has a great view of the bigger picture of life, how to handle diverse situations. He's humble and has a tremendous amount of gratitude, I believe, for where he is now. So John, I'm glad the work you do in the privacy of East is now recognized publicly here today. So again, congratulations. Thank you.
John, we have a certificate up here for you. We'd also all like to say congratulations. We're very proud of you, and we're very fortunate to have you as part of our Sachem family. Before we begin with the budget presentation, I just want to update on a couple things. Union Avenue, we are moving along with that. We're now working with PSEG to disconnect, to move forward with the demolition of the building. So we're making progress there. Today was supposed to be our state assessment and ELA grades 3 through 8. We were able to complete 6 through 8, but 3 through 8 is going 3 through 5. Sorry. Was being moved to tomorrow and Friday. There were problems with the state with the connection on the computers. It happened yesterday for a lot of districts as well. So hopefully tomorrow is a better day with that. I know I sent a connect that out earlier, but I'm hoping tomorrow works well. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Sarakis for the budget presentation.
Okay, welcome everyone. This presentation might look familiar because it is pretty much the presentation we did last week and the week before. So this is the budget adoption night. So the district is recommending, we are putting forward an expenditure budget of $380.9 million. This represents a budget to budget increase of 1.77% or $6.6 million. You can see by our expenditure chart here, we're looking at our salaries going up by approximately 1.89%. That is the largest portion of our budget, representing just under 47% of the budget. So you'll see we are trying to operate within that 2%, I use quotes, 2% cap. So these are the expenditures that we're looking to put forward on the ballot for the community to vote on May 20th. Part of that expenditure budget is a transfer to capital for $9 million. And these are the projects we have talked about them on the last several meetings that we are looking to complete over the 25-26 school year. And you'll see there's some work at our pools. It's not actually on the pools, but the mechanics behind them and some of our ceiling and lighting. And you'll see roof replacements, electric service, and other various projects throughout the district. And we're also looking to purchase 2 new large buses to replace 2 of our spare buses. The proposed revenue budget to fund that expenditure budget is made up of property taxes, state aid, and other miscellaneous revenues. The property taxes are a 2.2% increase or $4.6 million. Important to note that that is a tax cap compliant budget. We are not looking to pierce the cap. That levy amount is right up at the cap. The New York State budget is late. We did receive an email today. Both houses were supposed to leave today for the spring break. They will be in tomorrow to pass another budget extender that's supposed to take them through the weekend. So I guess that means they'll be coming back next week early from their break, but we do not have a budget as of right now. Also on the revenue side, we are looking to appropriate fund balance of $11.9 million and $1,750,000 from our reserves in order to make this a balanced budget. Projected property taxes for the average homeowner in the Sachem School District. If you're in the town of Brookhaven, you can expect approximately a $142 increase for the year in the school taxes. Town of Islip, approximately $160, and the town of Smithtown, approximately $148. I feel like I'm taking an eye exam because I can't see it. These are based on current assessed values and equalization rates. Budget highlights: maintains all of our curricular programs at their current levels, maintains our drama and music programs, the transfer to capital to ensure critical infrastructure projects are maintained to preserve our buildings, and it maintains most of our athletic programs either through general fund appropriation and community donations. There will be a proposed Proposition 2 on our ballot this year, and I just wanted to mention that on the district's website, there is a pop-up right now that explains Proposition 2, and it has by school each of the maps indicating what those walker zones would look like under this new proposition if it's passed by the community. But again, this proposition is saying that for our K-8 students, we are looking to change the minimum distance that will transport from 1/2 mile to 1 mile. and the maximum is 15 miles. That's what it currently is for K through 8. And for our 9 through 12 students, we're looking to increase that minimum from 1/2 mile to 1.5 miles, but also reduce the maximum from the current 25 miles down to 15 miles. The maximums of 15 miles, that's the state limit. But the New York State limit, we are still below that. New York State says K through 8 students can be in a walker zone, I use quotations, of up to 2 miles, and the 9 through 12 students could be in a walker zone up to 3 miles. So our next steps are our budget hearing on May 7th. The budget vote is on May 20th, and then beginning in June, or even as soon as the budget vote is completed, we are looking to start that demographic study. We did reach out to a consulting firm, and we do have a proposal to perform that study for us for the possible redistricting, attendance zones, and closing of a building. Do you want me to talk about arts and education? I know there was a lot of flurry of activity, emails and phone calls related to arts and education, and we have been responding to emails, and I spoke with several PTA members, and I did actually speak with our council before coming down to this meeting just to get some verification from them. I know that the district had said that we wanted to wait until our BOCES aid number comes out in December. That's when we know exactly the portion of our arts and education and exploratory enrichment program that we're being aided on. And there was some concern about the start up of the school year and how those early programs would be funded. And we did reach out to our council to ask them, the PTAs make donations in the current year for their current year programs. And we deposit those into the general fund. And at the end of the school year, when we close the books, that would get closed out to our fund balance. Similar to other donations, that donation from the PTAs can be what we call restricted. So when they make that donation for this year, for current year expenses, when the PTAs fill out the donation form, it can say on it to be used towards the 25-26 arts and education program. Then we record that deposit into a deferred revenue, and that can be the startup money for the PTAs for those early months of the year until we find out the actual BOCES aid number and make that adjustment in December. Any question?
Just real quick, the option was just to do an estimate on that, okay? And then
Correct.
we potentially could estimate lower, and one of the schools could end up with less money, or to wait until December, where it was more accurate, and then get the exact dollar amount back that was coming back to them from the state.
Correct.
All right.
So this way, if the PTAs restrict that donation just by saying to be used for 25-26 arts and ed program, that money then will be sitting there for them next year to start those early programs, September, October, before some fundraising has been done already.
Laura?
And Michelle, we had discussed, so the fear was that if there's not a budget line, that when you get the rebates from BOCES, we're going to just absorb it into our general fund and not give it back to the PTAs. So I tried to explain the easiest way is we can have a budget that has a $0 as a placeholder. As a school district, our auditors will not allow that.
Correct. But by making a restricted donation, we can do a budget adjustment. That's a resolution that goes to the board that says, here's a donation from, for example, let's say Merrimack PTA. Here's a donation of X number of dollars to be used towards the 25-26 program. When we receive that donation, we'll deposit it into a deferred revenue account this year. And then as soon as we hit the 25-26 school year, we'll do a budget adjustment to move it out of deferred revenue and into that code to be used.
And when BOCES gives the percentage, 40% back,
We'll do the same thing.
we'll do the same thing. So it's treated like a donation that's then given back to the school that it goes to. And it's not that Sachem absorbs and keeps that money.
Correct.
And we can't do a budget line that's
Of
funded with $0.
Right, correct.
Thank you.
Just,
And sorry. And then just one quick question on transportation, just because I got a few phone calls late today. So there's a certain confusion, and now maybe with the pop-up, that if this proposition passes that, or doesn't pass, that late buses get restored. Like they're tying this proposition into our late buses. So it has nothing to do with late buses.
I believe you're referring to the middle school late buses, and those were one of the reductions in this budget.
Right,
Does not
but-
impact the high school
Correct.
late buses.
But it's going to just impact based on the mileage.
Correct.
Not whether or not there's a late bus or not a late bus.
Correct.
Thank you.
So one question, Michelle. If you go back to expenditure by object, it's the second slide. We're seeing a $6.6 million increase in our expenses from 24-25 to 25-26.
Yes.
All right, and that a lot of that sometimes is outside of our control. We don't
Correct.
dictate that. A lot of times that comes right down from Albany. That you have increases in TRS, ERS, and things like that. If you can go to proposed revenue budget, so I think it's the fourth page. All right, we're envisioning $6.6 million increase, but only $690,000 in state aid.
Correct.
Okay. So that money has to be made up somewhere, and as a result, we're using $11.9 million in fund balance.
Correct.
And that's money that we have to return back to that for next year. So we have to have surplus and in our budget, and if we don't have surplus, then we're starting next year already in the red.
Correct.
And
Correct.
this is the problem that a lot of districts in Long Island are experiencing. That when you see increases in the millions, that are outside of your control, and you're only seeing $620,000, or in some cases, in some districts, you're receiving a reduction.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the only way you can make that up is use fund balance. And when that fund balance is no longer there, then we have to reduce. And that's the agony of sitting on this board up here, having to look at what are we going to reduce that's going to have the least impact on kids.
Correct. And like we said last time, with the revenues between the tax levy and the state aid, it's over 90%. It's closer to 95% of our revenues are controlled by a formula that we have no input into.
And when we started this process, we were somewhere, I certainly could probably help with this, probably $18 million in the red.
Correct.
And we were able to get it down to 6.6 million. Okay. And I think we did it in a way, and I don't mean this to be rude to anybody, that's listening, but in a way that has the least impact on kids. We didn't raise class sizes by 2, which is what we talked about early on, where classes could have jumped from 22 to 29 just by changing the board target numbers. We kept most, if not just about all of our athletics intact. We still have clubs scheduled for next year. So I think you guys did a creative job in putting together a budget that had the least impact on children. And that's the direction I think the board gave you. And there was a lot of debate up here as to what should go and what shouldn't go. And, I think you guys, should be commended for what you did to get us through next year. But with that said, we have to start thinking about the year after that. And if we
Correct.
don't get state aid that some of our surrounding districts are getting, if we don't get that, that email with the state aid runs where we're getting $5 or $6, $7 million increase, we're going to be facing really, really tough times next year this time.
Correct.
And so I just want to commend you on so it's clear that people understand that $6.6 million increase, and we only got $690,000, which is 10% of what our increase is. So I'm going to come to Stephanie. I'll come back over here.
Which is why we couldn't leave $800,000 sitting in arts and ed, because we technically weren't using it for arts and ed. We were using it almost as like a bank account to prepay till we got the money from arts and ed, if I'm understanding it correctly, which is then 8 teachers. That's 8 teacher salaries. And I know that it was confusing as heck, which is why we had weeks and weeks and weeks of discussions on it. But, none of us here, I don't think any of us wanted to end arts and ed ever. So I just want to make that clear. We needed that money to make sure other areas of Sachem didn't lose out for the kids.
Meredith, Vivian?
That's pretty much what I was going to say. We're always on the same page, which is crazy, right? But I just wanted to commend you because I know it was crazy, and I know that I can see it in my emails and my phone calls that there are plenty of PTA people out there that thought that we were a board that was willing to do away with arts and ed, and we are not. I know sometimes you guys think we're very evil people, but we're not that evil. We weren't willing to do away with arts and ed. It was just the way that it was spoken about, the way it was there. And we just had to come to an understanding. And so that there are no misnomers out there, we are not doing away with arts and ed. I just want to make it crystal clear because it hasn't been crystal clear.
Sabrina?
Michelle, can you just clarify with the Proposition 2, if it passes, that the money that we have put in for to take from the reserves, that will not happen? Is that correct? And then if it fails, can you just clarify that? Because there was a little questioning. And then because we did talk about cuts last time, those, and then if it does, just speak to that, because I know there was
Okay.
confusion about whether or not those cuts were happening or not. So what will happen and
So-
what won't happen if
so
it passes or fails?
The budget is completely separate from Proposition 2. And we are taking the $875,000 from each of those two reserves on the chance that the proposition doesn't pass, because we have to present a balanced budget. If Proposition 2 does pass, that budget stays as is. I will still, on July 1, make a journal entry to move money from reserves, over into the fund balance, the proper accounting for everything as is in this budget. The difference will be that at the end of the school year, we would have $1,750,000 less in expenses for transportation. So you'll have that fund balance left over to put back in the reserves if that's where the board chooses to put it back to.
Other questions? Mr. Attorney?
Oh, can you go back to the expenditures again? I just want to point something out because I was pretty close the last time. I'm sorry, go to the budget, the revenue budget. Okay. So what we're saying right in that slide right there, we're using $11,904,035 of appropriated fund balance. And that's between what you have left over and the unrealized revenue that you weren't anticipating getting that we got from BOCES, right? And you're showing $1.75 million coming out of the restricted reserves, which we all know I don't agree with. So that right there represents about $13.6 million, right? That we're already behind this. On July 1st, we're behind $13.6 million, right? Then on top of that, we could probably guesstimate that go back to the expenditures again. So we're probably going to have roughly $3 million again in increases in salaries, right? Roughly. Okay. So that's 19.6. Going to have some increases. I'm going to tell you that right now, we're starting July 1 over $20 million in the hole. That's just, I'm just going to throw that out there because I think that's going to be the number. So it's not going to be an easy, we're not going to have an easy time. We're going to have to make some really tough decisions. As I mentioned the other day, we could close all our middle schools and 2 elementary schools and not close the gap. This cannot be cut out of a problem. You can't do it. It's never going to happen. So I'm going to vote no on the budget because I don't like seeing it come out of the restricted reserves. And I understand that, yes, if the proposition does pass, in essence, what happens, it rolls into the appropriated fund balance, right? But you still diminish those reserves because you got to ledger them out. We'd have to put them back or they're going to be out, right? But
Right.
we're going to end up probably want to use that money in the subsequent budget in the appropriated fund balance line. So it'll never go back. So I've said my piece, and you all know how I feel.
Anybody else? Meredith?
So also to clarify on Prop 2, if it passes, we have 1.75 that technically should go back into reserves, but the board at the time will decide what they want to do with it. If
Correct.
it fails, we are 1.75 million, like we've got it put aside from the reserves this year, and then you have to decide for the following year, do you take it out of reserves again and deplete and keep depleting and keep depleting? And if you deplete your reserves, as much as some people like to say that we have so much in reserves, if you deplete it by 1.75 million every single year off the bat, forget about everything else, you're going to be in trouble in a
Right.
few years.
Because you
So-
shouldn't be using your savings to fund your daily operations.
Right. So if it were to fail, then the board that sits here next year has to make extremely difficult decisions. The board that sits here next year is going to make really difficult decisions anyway, pass or fail. But if that Prop 2 fails, it's going, those decisions are going to be made even more difficult there's going to be even more cuts. There's going to be even more draconian measures, like people say. The other thing is, do we know, I know we were trying to figure out how many kids, because as much as everybody likes to say, oh my God, you're cutting transportation, we pay a lot of money in transportation. Look, we have 1.75 million in transportation that we can cut. That's more than most districts even use for transportation for the whole year. We're looking to make a cut of 1.75 million. Now, we have a lot of children who are entitled to use a bus and they don't. So we're paying that money anyway. So I want everybody to understand, when you're voting on this proposition, yes, it affects a lot of people, but it doesn't affect as many as we think, because there's lots of kids who are in morning and aftercare. They might be entitled to a bus. They don't use it because their parents have to drop them off early and pick them up late. There's lots of kids whose parents, I live at the lowest point of the district. Getting to Sachem North on certain days could take 30 minutes from my house. So there's lots of children whose parents don't want them sitting on a bus for so long. So there's lots of kids who are not utilizing this transportation that we're paying a lot of money for. And I understand that there are kids that it's going to affect, and I do feel horribly for them, but we have to look at this from and it's ironic that I'm the one to say this, we have to look at this from a fiscal point instead of an emotional point.
Any other comments?
Just to follow up on the transportation one more time. And again, a few people had said, well, reach out and see what other districts are doing. And other districts are following New York State minimums. So Miller Place, for example, kids cross 347 to get to their elementary school. There's a crossing guard sitting on 347. So I think our focus for safety is to find out how to get crossing guards where we need them. Kids going, my daughter went to Catholic school. Everybody that she went to Catholic school that lived in other school districts paid to have a bus take them to their school. We didn't have to, because Sachem would bus over the minimum 15 miles. So they would bus up to 25 miles. So she was able to get a bus to St. John the Baptist. Other friends living in Middle Country or Bayport Blue Point or other districts paid those schools for a bus that came and picked up their kids. So it's not that those kids will have no bus, it's just going to cost. And again, when we did beyond what the state required, we've done that for many, many, many years. Other districts surrounding us realized a while ago they could no longer afford that because it's not sustainable. And a sustainable budget, and Mike and I will agree to disagree on this, piercing the cap to make a budget does not, in my opinion, make it sustainable. So taking from reserves, piercing a cap, we need to get a budget that we can fund. The tax cap isn't going away every year at the tax cap, and have it be sustainable for all of us. And again, Rob said, we're not increasing class size because, as I speak here every week, like a broken record, our teachers are what makes Sachem special. Our teachers and what they give in our classrooms makes Sachem special. Yes, we all get attached to buildings, or we're all used to busing a certain way. Those things we may have to adjust. But if we keep the classrooms and the teachers who are giving instructions our primary focus for our students, that for me is what's important. Thank you.
Okay. Really, the last part, and I'll just throw this in there. Once this budget is presented and it goes out for community approval and it passes, we need to, so people have understanding that there's no surprises. We need to start the discussion about redistricting and possible closure. And that's something that is going to happen next year. It's something that has to happen next year. Otherwise, we are never going to be able to close the gap that we're talking about.
And we have the proposal. We received it this week. It will be in your Friday letter outlining the scope of work and the timing. I just want to work with the consultant to push the timing back a little bit. They have it where they would present their findings and their recommendations in March, and I want them to do that in January, the latest. Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. At this time, I'd like to invite the Budget Advisory Committee up then for their presentation.
So just as a way of introduction, the Budget Advisory Committee has spent the last probably 6 months in communication with the district. Since January, we've met after every Board of Ed meeting, and we've done a deep dive into the budget. So I just want to thank the Budget Advisory Committee for all the dedication. We had a very diverse group this year. We had financial people, teachers, community members, business people, and they really dove in, took it serious, asked a lot of good questions. Michelle and Ron, thank you guys for giving all the information back in a timely manner. I think it was an eye-opening experience for most of the committee members. So with that, we've got Tina Pfeiffer from the Budget Advisory Committee. Matt Linsalata is here. I see Elaine Ranieri in the back. If there's anybody else here, Bill Dowd is here as well. So thank you all. And I'm going to turn it over to Tina, and she's going to take us through your findings and recommendations.
Is that microphone on? Just make sure the green button's on.
It's on now. I'll start again. Good evening, Board of Education and Sachem community. My name is Tina Pfeiffer, and I've had the privilege of serving on the Budget Advisory Committee for the past 3 years. This year, I was honored to be the chairperson. I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight to share the work of the committee when we were reviewing the budget. Before diving into the work that we do, I'd like to recognize the representatives that served on the Budget Advisory Committee. The members included district administration, the Board of Ed members, and Sachem community. I'd like to thank them for their time and their thoughtful input throughout the process. Their insights is what shaped the feedback that I will be sharing with you tonight. I just want to do a quick overview of the role of the Budget Advisory Committee. The Budget Advisory Committee was formed to review the proposed budget and then provide feedback to the Board of Education. The focus is to ensure that the district's funding supports students, staff, and financial health of the district. This year, we met approximately 5 times where we carefully reviewed the budget, asked questions, received thoughtful feedback, and engaged in in-depth discussions. Throughout the process, one thing that stood out to us was transparency. We appreciated how open and clear the process was. Ron and Michelle addressed all of our questions, and they were quick to follow up with anything that we needed, so thank you very much. They truly created an environment where we were encouraged to ask questions and share our opinions and thoughts. So next, we're going to share what the majority of the Budget Advisory Committee supported. We are in support of Proposition 2, which changes the transportation eligibility. Of course, we just discussed it saves about $1.75 million. We also supported the demographic building and utilization study, capital maintenance projects, and the use of reserves while emphasizing the importance of long-term reserve health. The committee did discuss the idea of piercing the tax cap. If we did decide to move forward, it would cost the district about $60,000. While we understand that this may be considered for the future, at this time, most members of the committee felt that it would be unlikely to pass and shared concerns about community support. Looking ahead, these are the few suggestions to strengthen communication and engagement with the Board of Ed and the community. One idea was to host a quarterly forum where real-time dialogue could occur between the Board of Ed and the community. Another suggestion was an app where the district can share updates and keep the community informed. Another suggestion was create a vision board to highlight district-wide goals and progress. And finally, the majority of the Budget Advisory Committee supports the 2025-2026 budget. Oops. Sorry.
Any questions from the board? Sorry. Okay. Tina, is there another slide or no?
Nope, that's it.
No, I thought there was,
Okay.
I think I put it all on one slide,
Okay,
but that's
so some
okay.
questions. Laura?
So first, thank you and thank your committee and Stephanie and Vinny, all your work. So one of the things on your recommendations, the Board of Ed and community input. So what somebody very smart to me said today is after we adopt the budget, then we go around and meet with PTAs or buildings and, you know, share the budget. This is what we're presenting. This is what we're doing. But during a board meeting, community members can't come up, ask questions, and get an answer. So they thought, like you said, quarterly or sometime through the process, if there was a forum where community members could come, speak to Board of Ed and administration and say, you know, the hoopla over the arts and ed probably wouldn't have gotten to the frenzied pace it was at if there was a Q&A during the budget process versus after the budget is adopted. So I think that's an excellent suggestion. I never thought about it. Somebody else said it today. And I appreciate all that you put into here. And the communication piece is key, as you said. And thank you again for everything.
Vinny?
Thank you, Tina. Great job. One of the things that was on the slide was the concept of an app. And I think, Matt, you had brought that up. I think it's a great idea. And Patty, maybe we need to have Jack Renda look at this. Most people don't go to the website. Everything's on their phones. So I think Matt Linsolato on the board, on the committee, came up with the idea of we should have a Sachem app where there's maybe real-time feeds or just information to keep that community connection. So something to consider, and maybe that's something that Jack's team can look at. So, okay. Again, thank you to all who participated. Greatly appreciate it.
Stephanie?
I really want to thank the committee because you guys dedicated almost, I think it's over 30 hours of work with this. And that's a lot to spend away from your family, sometimes under stressful situations. Vinny, you took the helm when I needed to be somewhere else at the exact same time. Like literally, this was a labor of love for Sachem, and everybody was there for the same reason, even if we didn't agree on the path. So again, you guys were incredible with the dedication, and I really, really appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to mention was with the app, one of the biggest things was breaking things down in an understandable way for the community so that when they had questions, they didn't have to ask each other, or they didn't have to, rely on something they heard, that they could say, hey, this said here, X, Y, and Z. So I would love the idea of an app or something similar that we could have easier transparency and communication.
Any other comments? Meredith?
I just want to thank you. I was the board liaison for the BAC very, very, very long time ago, and it was nothing like this. And the job that you guys all did is truly amazing. I appreciate that. And I vote that we call the Sachem app the truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. It was definitely a team effort, so thank you.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you to the whole committee.
I just need another agenda. Grab your agenda. Okay, brings us to item C, the student board member report. All right, Scott or Michael, let's go first.
Good evening, everyone. A couple things to mention tonight coming from North. This week we're amidst Spirit Week at North. We've had great participation so far this week, and we have 2 days left, so excited to see more participation. St. Baldrick's was an amazing success at the school. We raised about $5,000 for childhood cancer, so we're really proud of that. We had many volunteers, lots of fun competitions the day of, and lots of participation towards Battle of the Classes. And this Friday, also going to be contributing towards Battle of the Classes, we have a bunch of fun competitions in March Madness. It's going to be periods 4 through 8, and personally, I am the most excited to watch the Students versus Teachers game 8th period. So
Are you in it, Scott? Again?
No, I'm not. I'm not great at basketball.
Michael?
Hello, everybody. So Sachem East hosted its annual workforce event showing kids different job opportunities, as well as hosting its college and career fair. March Madness is this Friday, just like Sachem North, and I'm also very excited for our faculty versus student dodgeball game and basketball game. And our Spirit Week is ongoing, and we have had lots of participation all week, and I'd love to see it go on for the next 2 days. We did not, but we have been donating. We have had different. Our Renaissance Student Leadership Club has had a table set up next to the cafeteria and auditorium, and we've been raising money going on throughout the past week.
Thank you, Michael. Yep, Ken, Meredith?
We're lucky enough to have News 12 with us. So as I was telling John before the meeting, lots of really great things happen here. So as you just heard, we raised $5,000. That's in just one of our schools for St. Baldrick's, which is a really good organization, really important. So I hope that that will be in your News 12 report.
Okay, thank you, guys. Item D is the approval of the minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes from April 2nd. Stephanie, second by Mike Esternia. Questions or discussions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Item 2, visitors. We have 2 visitors tonight. You're limited to 3 minutes. Ms. Florio will let you know at about the 2-minute and 40-second mark that you need to wrap up, your current concerns. First one, Jay Jones. Jay Jones. I'm sorry.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jay Jones. Can you hear me okay with this? All right. I've been up here a couple times in the past few months, and I really don't have too much input other than a deep thank you for all of your volunteerism, all of the volunteers on the board, and all the paid employees of the district that have really gone above and beyond trying to explain some of these very, very difficult things to us. Michelle, I know we're not speaking directly to the members up here, but I thank you very much for your explanation and patience. The community, the PTA community, very specifically, was in a tizzy this past week and a half. And it was your patience and your explanation, Stephanie, and some of the other board members that spoke to some of the other PTA representatives. It really cleared up a lot of things. And one thing that I urge everybody is try to find common language. Still, even Michelle talking to you this week, the common language, we're speaking from a PTA perspective, a community perspective, an accountant perspective, a business perspective. There's words in there like state aid. We call it a rebate. You call it state aid. It sounds very different. Sounds like you're stealing our money. And I know nobody up here has ill will. So we really appreciate that time. And moving forward, I obviously will have to pay much more attention to the Board of Ed and what goes on. But we really appreciate everything that you've done. And I know tough times are ahead, and we'll be here paying attention. And if we ever seem angry, know that we all have the same interest in mind, the children. Okay? So thank you very much. I appreciate everything.
Thank you, Jay. William Dodd? William?
No, it's Bill Dowd.
I'm sorry, it said William on it.
I was a member of the Budget Advisory Committee. It was a 4-2 vote by the committee to recommend the acceptance of the proposed budget. I was one of the 2 that opposed it. And I had concerns. My concern was that there's a large budget gap followed by a large surplus at the end of the year. And it seems to be a pattern. I look back at it, and you look at budget year 2023, 2024, your budget gap was 9.4 million. End of the year, you had 9.2 million surplus. 2024, 2025, your budget gap was 11.6 million, followed by a surplus, 11.9 million. This year, you're looking at a budget gap of 12 million. I don't know what's going to be next year, but I predict it's going to be close to it. You're going to have a surplus again. And each year, you keep on making cuts. And you tell us that, okay, we have to make all these cuts, but then there's a surplus. I wonder how the people feel that lost their jobs or the kids that lost their programs when they see a surplus coming in at the end of the year. I mean, and as for the reserve, I know people keep talking about it. According to New York State real property tax law 1318, there is a reserve 4%. But that reserve is not supposed to be used to plug a budget gap. That reserve is supposed to be used as a rainy day. As the budget goes, you should be using that reserve if something happens. It appears that our expenditure is very high. Therefore, we're never going into this for the year, using a reserve as it's supposed to be used. So I think the board, before you accept this adoption of this budget, I think you need to take a closer look at the relation between your budget gap and the surplus that you got at the end of the year. There's something not right. And you're telling you want to pierce our cap, you want the taxpayer to pay more money to reset. I think you got to reset your expenditures, because it just seems very strange that your budget gap is very close to the surplus you have at the end of the year. So I urge the board to take a closer look at that before you adopt this budget, and even change transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dowd. All right. Okay, any other visitors? Okay, item 3, we have business items, consent agenda A through E. I need a motion, please. Matthew Bauman, second. Mike Isernia. Questions or discussions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Item 4, we have the first reading of policies. There's no vote on this. This is the policy that deals with code of ethics for the Board of Education. Any questions, concerns on Mr. Isernia?
I mean, I could speak. It was myself and Sabrina and Meredith were on with Ingman's, but it was really clarification, just to make it very clear that a member of the Board of Education would not be an officer in another organization. And it's for 2 reasons. It's to avoid conflicts of interest. It's also because some of these organizations have duties of loyalty that require undivided loyalty to that association. You put the person in a bad position. So it's just a lot cleaner, and most districts have it. It'll be no officerships if you're on the Board of Education. So that obviously they do business with the school district involved. Not.
Yeah, and Mike, in the 6 pages that policy is, it was just that one paragraph that was revised. Yeah. All right. So we have a motion and a second. Okay. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? All right. Motion's carried. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No vote. I did say that earlier. All right. Yeah. Item 5, personnel consent agenda A through K. Any motion, please? Stephanie, second by Matthew Bauman. Questions or discussions? And all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Item 6, before we put it to a vote, it is a consent agenda for support staff A through J. I just need the board, we need to amend item 6J. So if you can take a look at 6J, it says approval of agreement with UPSEU, clerical unit, member of Sachem School District. We need to change that subject area to approval of disciplinary charges pursuant to Section 75 of the Civil Service Law. All right, to be more accurate as to what we're voting on. All right, everybody see that? Page 14, I'm sorry. 14, it's, yeah. Yeah, so once again, right now, it says approval of agreement, UPSU, okay, member of the Sachem School District, needs to be revised to read approval of disciplinary charges pursuant to Section 75 of the Civil Service Law. So I need a motion to change item J, 6J. Okay, Ms. Isernia, second by Laura Slattery. Discussions, questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Now what we're going to do is we're going to vote on the consent agenda A through J with that modification. A through J. Right? Okay. Okay. Personnel consent agenda A through J. I need a motion, please. Okay, Matthew Bauman, second by Vinnie Reynolds. Questions or discussions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Item 7, we have personnel for administration. Item A. A motion, please. Okay, Laura Slattery, second. Okay, Vinnie Reynolds. Questions or discussions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Ms. Capolita?
We've just like to take a moment to recognize the retirement of Mr. Eric Neinhardt. He is the Executive Director for Special Education. He's been with us for the last number of years, supporting special education students in the community across the district. He is retiring in May, and we wish him all the best. We know that his social worker at heart way of living is something that he intends on continuing out and supporting folks out there in his private practice. We wish him all the best in his retirement.
Okay, item 8 is contracts. We have a consent agenda A through D. Any motion, please? Stephanie, is there a second? Vinnie Reynolds, questions or discussions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
Mr. Scavo?
Yep.
If I could, I'm sorry. I didn't realize the budget was not a standalone item.
As part of the consent
Apparently,
agenda.
we approved it as part of the consent agenda under contracts, I think it was. Support staff? No.
Business items.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to revise it, Mr. Attorney?
I'm going to ask if I could be granted courtesy to change my vote on that item then.
Allison, is there any procedure? A motion? All right, so.
Motion, it's a motion to reconsider.
Mr. Attorney wants to reconsider item E. Okay. Any motion? Laura, second. Okay, Matthew Bauman. Questions and discussions? Okay, Mr. Attorney, you want to change it to?
Yes, I thank you for the courtesy. I'd just like to change my vote to a no.
Okay, got that, Allison?
Yes, so the motion to reconsider was approved by the board. Now before the board's the actual action item, and you can take a vote on that.
Okay, just on item E of the consent, the whole consent.
Yes.
Setting a motion to approve item E, adoption of the 25-26 budget. Vinnie Reynolds, second by Meredith. Questions or discussions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Mr. Attorney is a no.
I thought it was coming at the end.
Yeah.
We have 9. Okay, item 9 is Committee on Special Education. Consent agenda A through B. Any motion, please? Stephanie, second by Matthew Bauman. Questions or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Item 10 brings us to monthly reports. Any board liaisons want to report? Stephanie?
Legislative committee met by Zoom. We are having a launch of advocacy for the next couple weeks. It's going to be social media and then some cameos of people in the community, board, administration, explaining, our unique needs, and then advocating for them. So it's going to be a nice segue. It's also going to kind of push for the budget to be adopted with New York State is one of the big ones. So it should look good. We're going to have a lot of there's excitement behind it, and we're hoping that it'll help. So
We kind of got a glimpse of the first one. If we could share that, I know Chris Vaccaro did a 1-minute video.
Right. Yeah.
On some of the concerns. that we
Yeah.
have in
He
the
got
station.
more tonight. He's getting more tomorrow. So we should have it out fairly quickly. And if anybody on the board wants to be part of it, just message me or Meredith or Chris Vaccaro or Dana.
Okay. Thank you for the update. Any other updates on any of the committees? Besides policy committee. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Closing public comment. We have any? Nobody? Old business. There's nothing on the agenda. Board discussion items. Okay. We had them early on in the superintendent's report. Future discussion items. Stephanie?
We've mentioned advocacy for crossing guards. We would like to make that an immediate legislative committee action item if we could. I do know that it's not a district discussion because prior to my life on the board, we were begging law enforcement to get us more crossing guards in the area. And it's really hard to do because they're also budget constrained. So if we could make a plan with our legislative committee on some kind of advocacy for it, it'll help, especially going into next year when we have to have the hard discussion.
So Stephanie, you're looking for endorsement of the board for the committee to start discussing
Yeah.
crossing
Yeah.
guards.
And we can start that after the budget because we don't have any, we're going to need information on if the budget passed to be able to move forward with that. You know what I'm saying?
Any concerns with that? Everybody's good with that? Okay, Steph, Laura?
I actually had on my thing crossing guards because now that I saw Miller Place has the crossing guards on 347, I was wondering if maybe we could reach out to Miller Place and see how they've gotten, or other districts that have crossing guards on main highways, what their protocol was, how they got it. But for Miller Place to cross over 347, they had to have a crossing guard in place. So, and that's to go to an elementary school. So I just would like to see if maybe we could reach out to them and see how they went about procuring more crossing guards.
Okay. Any other, Meredith?
So Tina and the Budget Advisory Committee brought up a great point, and Laura doubled down on it, where we should have some kind of Q&A. I was wondering if maybe we could, it's just a proposal, obviously it would have to be looked into and figured out. Maybe like every 6 weeks, you could have your board meeting be more of a Q&A. You get your business done real quick. It's not a night that we bring in anybody to recognize them. And then you do a, like a Q&A with the community. Obviously, everybody would only have one question. You guys would get a chance to answer it. And it would probably be, something pretty worthwhile.
So we could talk about it. Is everybody okay with having that discussion as to how we would roll that out and, and what type of topics we would discuss opposition? Okay. Anything else? Future discussion items? Okay. No other visitors, no other discussions. Our next scheduled meeting is April 23rd here in the boardroom. I think we have some recognitions. I think we're doing winter sports that evening. At this particular point, any motion to go into exec session, discuss contract negotiations with non-aligned staff. All right, Meredith, second by Stephanie. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Have a good evening, everyone.
Happy Passover, happy Easter.
Yes.
Have a
happy
wonderful
Easter,
break.
Passover, yeah.
And don't forget, you guys are off on Friday. Monday.